Brittany's got her first ratchet technique down. Ratcheting.
I was wondering what this was.
What are we doing right now?
Changing out the little spacers underneath the solar panels so
Exactly.
that they're not sterling.
Stainless steel.
Stainless steel. Sterling silver van parts. That would be fancy. You're proud of me?
Proud of you.
How much more do I have to do this? Welcome back for week 8 of our Sprinter Van Conversion series. With just a few weeks left in our workshop here in Florida before hitting the road to San Diego, where we'll be completing our build, we were sort of all over the place. From Drew installing the little air vent for our compost toilet, which he built in last week's episode, to me finally finishing our insulated window coverings, figuring out a solution for our not-so-ideal window gaps, painting our floor trim and nifty little step storage area gold, redoing our roof deck because of already rusting bolts, and starting a really cool experiment in ice dyeing, plus there were a few other things. This week was extremely productive and exhausting, but when it comes to building out your van, this is what the best weeks are made of. It's a beautiful day at the workshop today. And if you can remember what our workshop looked like in last week's episode, then you know we were so excited to return to this. And like most days, it was time to head to Lowe's to grab a few key ingredients, like a toilet flange, along with this coupling in the plumbing section to help seal the components of our compost toilet. Then Drew was all set to put the final touches on our bathroom area, which meant it was time for our tiny but mighty air vent to go in.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get some ventilation in the toilet. I had an existing hole in the van from the previous owner.
Look at how cute it is.
Little baby fan. And that fan is going to sit inside this little grate.
And what you see here is a nifty sliding gate that when closed will prevent air from flowing up and into our toilet area. But when the time comes to air things out, we can slide it open and turn our little ventilation fan on, allowing any less than rosy smells to be sucked right out of there. No stinky smells ever!
There it is, the little micro fan that'll keep the smells away.
With number 1 on Drew's to-do list complete, it was my turn. Oh yeah, bullseye. You might remember from week 4 when Drew and I picked out the cloth for our insulated Reflectix window coverings and blackout curtains. Well, with our New Year's resolutions fresh, it was time for me to stop procrastinating and do something about it. Luckily, our Reflectix window inserts were already cut, the sewing machine now prepped, and all that was left to do was cut the cloth and have at it. Or so I thought. So I decided to start my sewing adventure sewing on straight Reflectix before trying to attach the cloth, and it turned out like this. Good on one side, but not so good on the back. This situation, the bunching of the thread on the underside, was caused by the tension setting, which I was able to fix, as you see over here. But what I noticed was that over time, the sewing actually cut through the Reflectix. So, based off of a very helpful YouTube video, which I'll put the link to down below, I've decided to go with hot glue. So I'll be hot gluing the duck cloth and the pretty cloth onto the Reflectix. And it's time. After gluing the green material on with the hot glue gun, I then go ahead and I take my Reflectix tape and I glue down the cloth just to make sure it's extra secure. And now I'm about to put the duck cloth on top. Super great. And The black cloth that you see here, this is a water-resistant duck cloth that we found at Joann's Fabrics, and this is going to be what goes against the window, so if condensation happens, this won't be affected, it won't soak in the moisture, it won't get moldy. It came out pretty darn good. I'm pretty stoked. And over here are the rest of the covers that I'll be making. So I got my work cut out for me, but I think the spray adhesive will help a ton, especially with the larger window coverings, for making sure that the cloth doesn't bow out when it's pressed into the window. Voila! There it is. And just like that, one by one, our 7 covers were made, some needing more individual attention than others. So right now I'm actually adding in an extension because you could still see some of the window when I press this in. So hopefully this will help block out any of the extra light that you could see. I'm hoping it works. So these will basically always stay in anyway. So yeah, the cloth there. We'll add our little windowsill so it'll push it up just enough. And voila! So now we have no more of the light getting in over here. What do you think?
I think it looks good.
And then
Show me how we fold it forward.
So they'll stay in all the time. And when we want to look out our window, we just do that. Success. That's a relief.
Where are you in there?
Taking,
I can't find you in that mess of things.
taking our Reflectix coverings to the van. Gotta figure out where we need magnets on these suckers.
We're currently marking the spots in which Brittany's going to create magnets that are going to hold in the window cover. This is steel, luckily, where the other windows have aluminum, and our magnets will stick just like so where she puts these tape marks.
Super stoked that we can just use the visors in the front to hold the giant windshield cover in place. That's a huge time saver. With one final step before finally being done with this huge project, I grabbed our super strong magnets, which we bought on Amazon, and got to work figuring out where and how to make them stay. These are all the casualties from my sewing experiments, but I think I finally just sewed my first little magnet pouch. Funky little cat paws that I sewed, and I'm dropping these super strong magnets into each of them and then hot gluing them onto here, and that's how they're sticking into the windows. One by one, Drew helped me get our window covers in, and it wasn't long before I could finally revel in the fact that this job was done. It was starting to get really exciting seeing the transformation of our van. 8 weeks of long days and late nights, tackling projects we had no idea how to approach half the time. We were starting to see the fruits of our labor, and even more than being proud of ourselves, we were proud of each other. All of this for a little rolling home, because for us, there's simply no other way. Until our souls tell us otherwise, at least. Ooh, which brings us to one of my favorite design elements of our van build these days, the addition of our hidden shoe shelf. Not only because this is going to be one of the most useful and convenient storage areas, but because it's the absolute most perfect spot for us to hang our X-Men license plate from the Howler, our beloved little honeymoon van that you can learn more about in episode 1 of the series. Yes!
X-Men!
X-Men!
Yeah! Radical! Mega stoked.
Howler, you're coming with us. Taking the spirit of the Howler in there.
A British plate with us.
Look, there's got to be dirt from like Morocco and some Norwegian
all on here.
rain into there. Yeah. Look at that. Sweet.
Good day.
And something as special as that is worth more to us than gold, which is precisely the color we chose to display it on. With that pretty little detail complete, a few other important projects from week 8 that we can't forget to mention include finding an unexpectedly simple solution to our not-so-ideal window gaps. This carpet changes everything, and it's so easy. We thought we were gonna have to cut little pieces of wood to fit everything to cover all of this not-so-great stuff. But literally we just rolled some carpet, stuck it in there. This wasn't even going to be for this. We just thought, well, let's see what it looks like. And honestly, it looks pretty darn good.
Thumbs up.
I really like it too. We just slid in the carpeting in between the Reflectix and our wall.
Look, I got this one tucked.
And we are just going to fold it over, glue it, and it's perfect. Let's see over here.
Good.
Oh, nice. While things were starting to come together nicely inside the van, Drew had some bigger problems going on up on the roof.
About to make some headway on one of the projects that's been a huge headache throughout this whole process, and that is the spacers for the solar mounts and the roof deck that I assembled and built a couple weeks ago on the entire van. But I realized that those pipes that I cut were zinc pipe that I had spray painted with Rust-Oleum, and they sat for a couple weeks, and because there's salt here in the air in Florida, ended up being that the rust was coming through the inside of the pipes down into the washer. That right there is a lot of rust and something that only took 3 weeks to form. So by now putting in those stainless steel spacers, holding up the deck, and I actually raised it a little bit more because I was also having problems of the bars touching the roof, and that's just something that I figured it would be preventative. We might have rust stains running down our van, and that's just no good, not something I want to deal with.
With that said, it was out with the old and in with the new. But in order to get the 12 2.5-inch stainless steel spacers needed to raise the deck and 6 3/4-inch spacers for mounting the solar, Drew was going to need a little more than just elbow grease to get the job done.
Party time.
Whoa, that was wild. With the last spacer cut, it was time to file these puppies down so we could get back to enjoying our rooftop real estate once and for all. Get in there. Look at that craftsmanship.
One of the hardest days, definitely. Work done twice because I built the entire roof deck, but just took it all apart. And now I'm putting it back together. It's getting there. I'm feeling pretty good about it. It feels better to have done the job right though, I can tell you that much. Time to muscle. Go! Woo! We made it. Whoa. Look at that sunset up there. Our first one on the roof. The roof deck's back under us. Good old sunset.
That's all for now, folks. We hope you enjoyed week 8 of our Sprinter Van Conversion series. And if you haven't already, we invite you to like this video and subscribe so you can join us again next week and all the weeks after that. Because soon enough, this little van is going to be our one-of-a-kind vessel into the great unknown. And we are so excited to share the journey with you. Oh, and we almost forgot to mention our ice dyeing experiment. Guess you'll just have to wait till next week. Until then, remember to enjoy a little adventure of your own and follow us on Instagram at Mr. and Mrs. Adventure. We're so happy to have you along for the ride. Don't forget to like and subscribe.